People will judge you on your energy, on your enthusiasm, on your eye contact. You could come into the business and you could be 1 year in and you could beat a guy that's been in the game for 15 years. Losing is not bad. Missing out on business is not bad, because what it does, it reinforces this competitiveness in you that you don't want to lose again. I don't want to lose next time. I need to make myself better. What did I do wrong? In 80% of the cases, they pick the person. They don't pick the brand. Don't give up. Be prepared to fight harder for the next listing. That shows true character. I made a mistake and I paid dearly for it. And I had to own that mistake. Don't make rash decisions. Be careful about the people that you're hanging around with, because they are a reflection on you.
Welcome to the Upshot podcast by Homely, where we invite you into honest conversations with entrepreneurs, challengers, and long-standing legends shaping the real estate industry today.
Well, welcome to the 6th edition of the Upshot podcast here by Homely. My name's Ben Williams, and today we get to interview Glenn Farah of NG Farah Real Estate, who operate in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. Glenn has been in the industry for over 40 years, has conducted 4,000 auctions during this time, and has also sold over $1 billion worth of real estate during his extensive career. Glenn is a director of NG Farah and is the second generation to run this family business. We look forward to getting his thoughts on the marketplace and some of the challenges that he's faced over his career. Glenn, great to have you on the program.
Thanks, Ben. Much appreciated for the invitation.
Fantastic. Now, we always like to start these conversations a little bit around the property news. We've had a lot of Melbourne and Victorian agents on the program over the last few months. I'm curious to get your thoughts on the Sydney marketplace. How are things shaping up there at the moment?
The market's strong. Clearance rates, auction clearance rates are pretty high at the moment, considering we're heading into winter, and interest rates are on an upward swing. So considering those factors, the market's good.
Yep. So is there a shortage of supply at the moment? I know across the country it's pretty tight because no one really wants to sell in a down market. What are you finding things like in your marketplace?
Absolutely. We are finding that stock levels are down a minimum of 25%, and that is what is keeping the market buoyant. If normal stock levels were around, we would not see the prices that we're getting at the moment. So stock levels have a lot to do with the supply and demand, and with buyers being a little bit anxious because they can't find what they want. So they're being forced to paying overs for some properties.
Yeah. Do you think that, naturally I'm sure that there will be an increase in the supply over the coming months, particularly as we get close to this mortgage cliff that everyone keeps talking about? Is that being discussed in your marketplace or in your office at the moment?
It's sort of like, it's not openly being discussed, but we all know. I've been around for a long time, and I cannot see the Reserve Bank easing up on interest rates. I think that interest rates will continue to rise, and I think as they continue to rise, you will see more stock come on the market. But I don't think the stock will probably come on till 2024. A lot of people, they're doing their best to hang on and to try to maintain paying higher interest rates, but there gets a point where people think, well, I just can't do it anymore. And I don't think we've got to that point yet, but I think we're heading there.
Yeah. I was speaking to someone the other day who works for one of the major banks. I'm not going to say which one because I don't want to get him into trouble, but they were doing some numbers and they were saying that now 15% of mortgages that are out in the marketplace are starting to feel the pinch, are under the pressure from all of these interest rate rises. And naturally, you would expect that, if they're starting to feel the pinch, they're trying to hold on as long as possible. They will need to sell at some stage in the future. So do you think that, a sharp increase in supply is going to cause the property market to fall away sharply, or do you think that it will be able to maintain in the current climate?
Everything relies on confidence. So if confidence slips, people are sheep. People follow the leader, and the market will fall away. Not drastically. I always say there's a 10% buffer. That top 10% of the market is confidence. And I think that will fall away. At the moment, that's not happening. At the moment, people are very keen to buy property, and that's fueled by a very strong rental market. So when the rental market is
Yeah.
really strong, as it has been over the last 12 months, it's actually putting pressure on the sales market. People who would
Yeah.
normally go and rent a, well, you know what? There's nothing available. I'm going to buy something. There's a lot of people that fall into that category. So the strong
Mm.
rental market is also putting pressure on sales.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. That is something that's fairly consistent across the board. We had Donna Cross, who's in the property management space, on a couple of weeks ago. She said that things are starting to ease up a little bit in her marketplace, but certainly the number of applicants in the marketplace is really, really high, and people are feeling the pinch of uncertainty around where they're going to live. So I'm sure that will cause more people to start strongly considering buying in this marketplace. But what I wanted to do now is, I guess, move into your career. We've touched on the property market in your area. You've been in the industry for a very long period of time, and you work within your family business, obviously having the Farah name. Can you run us through your career? I understand you got into real estate at 17 years old. Is that correct?
Sold my first property at 17.
Wow. Is that
I was
legal?
quite proud. It was then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was locally born and bred in Maroubra, and I unfortunately didn't do that great at school. So when it came to getting a job, I was lucky. Dad just had a one-man band, and I got my HSC results, and I was so ashamed of them. I said, "Dad, can I get a job in your office?" And he was just pretty easy. And I thought, well, you know what? I really want to make a go of this, having failed my HSC, and yeah, I really enjoyed real estate. I really enjoyed the competitive nature of it, and I was fortunate at a very young age to sell a property by fluke, and that really gave me a taste of the real
Yeah.
estate market. I sold a little semi in 1980 in Kingsford for 62,000. So the same semi today would probably sell for about 1.7, 1.8 million. So
Yeah.
that gave Dad had established a small one-man real estate office, and I had the opportunity to work in that. And it took me a long time to learn the sales part of the business because my dad really didn't have any experience. So I had to really learn from trial and error and build that myself. But I had a lot of support from my brother, and I had a great philosophy in terms of recruiting the right people and making sure that we looked after those people. So retention of our staff was always really important to me, looking after the people that work for us,
Yep.
and that unfortunately has enabled us to grow the business over a period of 40 years. Now we've got probably 75 employees, 4 offices, and I've got 8 working partners, in not including myself. So it's been a great ride. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And really, for me, property is about lifestyle. So, being born around Sydney beaches, it's always been lifestyle driven. And we're
Yeah.
fortunate that buyers see the same thing. So, when there's lifestyle connected to a property, well, then the emotions are connected, and it's not so much a dollar investment. It becomes lifestyle, emotional, and hence you see these people paying ridiculous prices for coastal properties or parkside properties. Is because all of those factors are included.
Mm. It's certainly a beautiful part of the world that you live in, I must confess. The eastern beaches and where you operate, uh, yeah, I can understand why people are paying stupid money to live around those areas. But so, in terms of what age did you take over the helm at NG Farah? Was it early on in the piece? Did Dad hand over the reins to you early, or
Well,
did he make you work for it?
uh, Dad wasn't going to hand them over too early, and I did a lot of travelling as a youngster, which was a great education. Uh, I'll tell you what happened in 1986. My wife got pregnant. My partner got pregnant, and that really inspired me to work hard. And
Mm.
I can remember once I knew that I had to feed a baby of mine, that I really thought, well, I've got to take this to the next level. And that's when that's when I really took over. Probably in 1986, I became the sales manager, and then by 92, I was running the business. And in 2010, I stepped down to do a lesser role. But yeah, we grew the business through recruiting good people by building our brand. I said to Dad in the early 80s, 1981, 1982, I said, Dad, NG Farah, nobody knows us. Can we get a franchise? Can we get Rain and Horn or LJ Hooker? And he sat me down and he said to me, son, if your name's not good enough to put on the door, no name's good enough. So you better work with the name you've got. So he did a great job in really conditioning me up that it was about building our own brand. And then I thought, well, we'll do that. And it was a best move, because who wants to pay 5 to 7% franchise fees over a lifetime of being in business? Um, so we built our own brand, and we did that successfully. My brother Martin played an instrumental role in helping me build a business, because he was a naturally gifted salesman, and he had the ability to really connect with people and built a lot of long-term relationships. And then we really just looked after the people that worked for us, and then eventually those people became working partners, and the business just evolved. And now we've got 3 generations. I've got my daughter working in the business. My mother's still alive. She's 97. She comes in every now and then just to say hello. Before COVID, she
Yep.
was coming in every day. So at one stage,
Yep.
we had 3 generations working in one business, which was really, it was great. It was great. We're a family business, and that was just special for our family that we could all work together. Unfortunately, my father passed away in 2002, but his initials, NG Farah, are his initials, and that they're held with a lot of respect. And he really left us with a great reputation. NG Farah, people knew Mr. Farah as being a man who would help people and was very generous, and people still come into the office today and they say, oh, we bought our first property from Mr. Farah and he helped us get into that, or we rented our first property from Mr. Farah and he lent us half the money for the bond, going back all those years ago. So yeah, he created a legacy for us, and yeah, we're trying to continue in his name.
Yeah, I was just going to say you've built out a legacy brand in your marketplace, which is pretty awesome. And now that you've got the 3rd generation working in your office, is your daughter looking to take over the helm at some stage in the future and continue building out this legacy, or what's her plans, do you think?
She's very competitive and she loves the business. And I always say, unless you love real estate, and any job, you need to love your job. You spend a third of your life at work, so you want to find something that you love doing, and she does love it. It's a tough gig, because you have to be able to ride the highs and the lows, and you've got to be able to dust yourself off and be mentally strong and believe in yourself constantly. So yeah, she's enjoying the challenges, and I think one day, that's a big responsibility for her to be running the business. But one day she'll be definitely sitting on the board as a partner, and she's got a lot of experience. But when the kids were 5 and 6 years old, they were sitting in the back of the car, and I'd say, okay, anyone that can spot an NG Farah sign gets 50 cents. So, first one to spot an NG Farah sign. So I had them well conditioned from a young age.
Yeah.
So real estate's been part of our bloodlines, and at family dinners, Dad used to always love to discuss things, and so it is really part of our DNA.
Fantastic. And obviously, you've been in the industry for quite some time. You mentioned that it's a tough grind in some cases. Do you think it's gotten harder over the journey, or do you think that with the emergence of new technologies and I guess a new way of doing things, has it gotten easier? What's your view on it?
Listen, you have to keep up. You have
Yeah.
to keep up with the trends. You've got to keep up with technology. You've got to keep up with what the best people are doing. You've got to remember, in real estate, 20% of the agents generate 80% of the income. So it's the 80-20 rule. So if you're an
Yep.
agent, you want to aspire in that 20%, because if you're in the 80%, well, it becomes a tough gig. You want to be writing $1 million plus a year in sales revenue or sales commission, and that takes a decade to build your brand. It takes 10 years to to be trusted, and for people to come back to you and refer business, and to build that reputation of trust, and people think, well, I'm going to give him my biggest asset to sell. So unless you're in the game for the long term, you won't survive. And unless you're keeping up with technology, unless you're making the calls now, today, it's all about making calls. It's all about touching, it's all about doing the buyer work, not just sitting at the open houses and waiting for people to come through. Do the buyer work, connect people up with properties, do the vendor work, make sure that the vendor knows exactly what's going on in the market. Make sure if you've just sold a property and you've been to a couple of properties in the area, touching base with those people constantly. And if you're not doing that, someone else is, and you won't get the business. You can't be reactive in real estate. You need to be proactive. If you're reactive, you're going to be in the 80%. And it's a tough gig because it's all about getting the good properties. The good properties will sell themselves, but more importantly, the good properties provide so many opportunities in meeting good new people. And that's where all the business comes from. Building your database, making sure your data's clean, making sure that you're staying in touch with your database on a regular basis, so they know who you are and they know that you're the preferred person if you want to sell.
Yeah, I was going to touch on the 80-20 rule because I know that we spoke the other day about this, and I guess you've nailed all of those points in terms of 20% of the agents make up a huge portion of the marketplace. And if you were a new agent coming into the industry, I know it takes some time, a decade as you mentioned, but is there anything outside of the calls and managing the database that you would be suggesting they need to do in order to get traction very quickly?
Work hard. There is no compromise on that. If you're a new agent and you're getting into work at 9 o'clock, give the game away. You've given everyone else a 2.5, 2. You need to be in work at 7 o'clock in the morning. You need to be making 100 calls a day, touching base. You need to be sure that your patch, people know you in your patch, making the calls in your patch. You need to know every property that's sold in your patch. So product knowledge is critical because when you're talking to people, people will pick up on your knowledge. They'll pick up on how you speak to them with what sort of conviction, or how you talk to them in terms of what you know about the market. So having that information is really, really important. Knowing what everything sells for is going to educate you, but in turn you'll be educating your potential vendors, and they'll be attracted to that. They'll be attracted to someone who has got that product knowledge. And having been in the game a long time, what the great thing about real estate is, Ben, is that you could come into the business and you could be 1 year in and you could beat a guy that's been in the game for 15 years. Really, people will judge you on your energy, on your enthusiasm, on your eye contact, on your persona, on your aura. So if you believe in yourself and you're a young person and you're going for it, well, someone will give you an opportunity, but you may have to sit in front of a few people before you get that opportunity. You may have to lose 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. But losing is not bad. Missing out on business is not bad, because what it does, it reinforces this competitiveness in you that you don't want to lose again. I don't want to lose next time. I need to make myself better. What did I do wrong? How can I make myself better? And I think that's the opportunity in real estate, that even if you are relatively new in the industry, you can still be competitive, but you can't do it without hard work. You can't do it without knowing technology. You can't do it without having a focus on a certain patch. You can't do it without having a mentor that you can, bounce things off and have someone to look up to. So if you've got all those things in your environment, absolutely. And you need to be be prepared to lose. Losing's not bad, because sooner or later you will win a listing. And when you win that listing, the opportunities that come from one listing are so many. And that will give you confidence. And, I know some young people that are really doing well in the market. They've only been in the market for a very, very short time, but they've got this gritty determination. And people love it. Listen, Aussies love an underdog. That's for sure. And they love giving people an opportunity, but you have to earn that right.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you nailed it earlier on in the piece around the product knowledge side of things. I think that that's very powerful for someone entering into the marketplace as a fresh starter. If you know more than somebody else and you're having a conversation with a buyer or a vendor out in the marketplace, and you can convey that knowledge, that is, I guess, knowledge is power in almost every case. And that will give you, I guess, or put you in good stead relative to the rest of your competitors. So that's a really good one. The other thing that I picked up from this is that there's nothing like a little bit of pressure to keep you motivated. You mentioned that you had a baby on the way. So I'm sure if you're looking to stay focused, go out and have a baby, or maybe get a mortgage that you can't afford. And I'm sure that will keep you focused as well.
When I was recruiting people, Ben, I'd always ask if they had a family or if they had a mortgage, because it was a walk-up start. I knew if they had a
Yeah,
mortgage, or if any of my staff didn't have I'd say I would encourage them to buy property. I'd encourage them for two
yeah,
reasons. The first reason, because it would be a good investment. I knowing and having been in the market for a long period of time, I always believed that real estate was a great investment. But secondly, I knew I would get the best out of my staff. I knew that they would push hard if they had that extra responsibility. Extra responsibility of having to feed a baby, extra responsibility of having to pay a mortgage. You really aren't, you're out of your comfort zone, and that's the place to be in real estate, not in your comfort zone. There is no room in real estate to be comfortable. Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
that is awesome. I love that. Cool. Well, let's move on to the next point, because you've obviously been the business leader for some time. Now you've stepped back a little bit over the last few years, but you've seen a number of different marketplaces. You've seen the industry change a lot. How have you led your team through all of this? Is there anything that you could share with the listeners around, I guess, guiding a team through different markets and emerging technologies and those sorts of things?
Well, first of all, staying connected with your local community is important. And that's,
Mm-hmm.
for me, that was always really, really, really important. The surf clubs, the footy teams, the hospital, all the people that are doing charity work, which is building our social system, giving our children an opportunity to play sports. It's creating a safety net if you go to the beach. So for me, I was always really impressed with people who are prepared to dedicate their time for nothing, for a charity or for a footy team or for a surf club. So it was always really easy for me to say, yeah, I'm happy to support you guys. I'm happy to give you a couple of $1,000 sponsorship. It wasn't so much for the sponsorship, it was because I knew they were doing really good stuff for the community. And I thought,
Mm.
well, you got to be part of the community, and I really love that community. I was part of the surf clubs as a young lad, and I was always part of the footy team. So I've taken that to the next level. So staying connected with the community is really important. Retention of staff is also really, really important. If your business is a revolving door and you've got people coming and going all the time, that's not good for business. I've been very fortunate to keep onto my staff for long periods of time. Not everyone, but if a good proportion of them have been there for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And those people have been rewarded with partnerships now, and they're my working partners. That's important. Staying in touch with technology is critical. Being making sure that your company, not only your company, every one of your staff members are well versed on the technology, because technology will get you from A to B so much quicker these days. And being in my 60s now, unfortunately, I didn't grow up with the technology, so I've had to evolve and learn it the hard way. Not whereas young people today coming out of school, it's all second nature to them. And staying
Yep.
staying ahead of the technology is hard to do, but if you can keep up, that's just as good. Keeping up with technology, building your database, building your brand, staying in touch with your local community, and not forgetting that everyone has their own brand. So you might be working for Ray White, but at the end of the day, what's most important to you is your own brand within a brand. Because when someone decides to pick an agent, they really do. In 80% of the cases, they pick the person. They don't pick the brand. They may call the brand in, but they pick the person that they feel most comfortable with. So it is really important not to neglect your own brand. Build your brand, reinvest in yourself, reinvest in training, reinvest in yourself as a person to make sure that your health is good, your fitness is good, your mind is strong, and you can be resilient to the challenges that real estate will offer you. There are going to be challenges. If you're fit, healthy, strong, you will become resilient and you'll be able to bounce back so much quicker than having that balance, working. Whilst I'm a big advocate for working hard, but I'm a bigger advocate for work balance life. That my father used to say, Glenn, go on holiday, take 6 weeks off, go overseas, recharge your batteries, and I would always come back, and I would be so much stronger and mentally fitter from having that holiday. So reward yourself, love yourself, and then you will be the best version of yourself when you're out in the marketplace.
That's great. Good advice, particularly coming into the winter months, I gather. There's not a huge amount of activity, so it's a good time for agents to recharge. Everyone seems to go off to Europe around this time of year, so maybe that's something to set their sights and work towards, is a big European holiday to recharge those batteries.
I just saying that about Europe. I had a couple of guys, they'd go to Europe every year and they would come back, they'd go for 6 to 8 weeks, and the last 5 months of the year they would generate more income than they did for the whole year. That's how important the European holiday is. It doesn't have to be a European holiday. It could be a trip to New Zealand. It could be a trip to Fiji. But charge the batteries, switch off, and you will come back so much stronger.
Yeah, no, good advice. Good advice. I just want to circle back very quickly because you raised something about building out personal brands in the marketplace. And I know that you touched on, I guess, working within a community. What advice would you give to an agent around building out their personal brand? What can they do outside of, I guess, community events? What sort of things should they be doing to build out their personal brand?
Listen, it's obviously community events are easy because you can piggyback on them, and you have to be authentic. If you're not really into the surf clubs and you're just being there to try to generate business and get some sponsorship, people will pick it straight away. Whatever you do, you need to be passionate about to start, right? So people want to connect with authentic people. They don't want to connect with people who are just putting on a facade to get new business. So be your authentic self, number one. Connect with people that you are passionate about or you believe in. All right. Make sure that all the retail shops in the area. So if you're working in an area like Maroubra Junction, make sure that everyone knows you in that retail spot. There could be 150 shops in Maroubra. Walk around, introduce yourself to. Don't be backwards coming forwards. At the end of the day, people admire people who get off their backside and make an effort. If you're working a certain patch, don't be scared to go and door knock people, to introduce yourself to people. I think it's always good to do that when you've got information to tell them, not just knock on someone's door for the sake of it, because that can be an intrusion of their privacy. But you may knock on someone's door and say, listen, I've just sold the property around the corner. We've got a new neighbour moving in. We had a couple of people miss out. I'm just touching base with all the neighbours to find out if you are interested in selling. People want to hear a storyline behind your conversation. They don't want to hear you just knocking on their door saying, I want to sell. Build a narrative behind that. So at least they're going to walk away. You're going to walk away. You may leave a brochure behind, but there's some sort of interaction there. It's not just about you trying to get a listing, giving them some information so they can digest and they can remember you. Being consistent, you know, when you lose, don't give up. Be prepared to fight harder for the next listing. That shows true character. And we lose. We all lose. We all, you may lose 60% of the time. That's not bad. Losing's not bad, but you need to make sure why you lost that listing. Get onto your vendor and say, listen, I want to wish you all the very best. Never say anything negative about your competition. Never. Any negative, you put any negative out in the universe, that's going to come back. Wish your vendor all the best and ask them, what could I have done better? What could I have done better to secure the property so I know for next time? When you have that conversation with someone, people actually open up and say, you know what? They'll be honest with you. And I think if you find out what you could do better next time, you're going to be better prepared for that next listing. So drill down. Don't just accept someone else got the listing. Find out why they got the listing. And sometimes they may have got the listing because they're family friends or they've sold another property for them or they got a result that was way over the odds and they decided to give it to that person. I think that's all also really, really good for an agent to know. Not only you're going to go out and spend 2 hours with a vendor, spend a lot of time putting a proposal together, and you lose a listing, you need to know why you lost it. I think, and just generally staying happy, being happy, being positive about, being grateful that we live in a great country, being grateful that, that you're alive and having that sense of gratitude when you come to work every day. And I think if you're working from that grateful space, you are more likely to attract positive people.
I really like what you mentioned about contacting the vendor when you lose a piece of business because, you always tend to learn more from your mistakes and things that you've done wrong because then you don't do them again, right? So truly understanding why you didn't get the business or what went wrong, it will always be in the forefront of your mind not to do that again when you move forward. So I think that that's really, really good advice for anyone that's listening. Now, I want to just touch quickly on some challenges that you've had in your career, of course. We always, for all our guests, want to understand, what's gone wrong during their extensive careers. I know that you had some challenges back in the 2000s, and I guess I just wanted to understand from your perspective, obviously, what happened and how you dealt with that, because it was obviously a very, very turbulent time for you.
Ben, one thing about life isn't perfect. And we need to be able to adjust to situations. And sometimes things come across you that you're not really expecting. I'd spent 30 years building a brand, and I probably lost my way a little bit because I was really focused on work, and I probably the values that I have now, I probably at some point in time they probably fell through the cracks. Unfortunately, I got into trouble. I made a mistake. And I paid dearly for it. I paid dearly. I lost my livelihood for a term, and I had to own that mistake. And it wasn't anything sinister. It was just by lending a good mate of mine some money, and it just went pear-shaped because not a person of good character, and all of a sudden I was associated with that, and before you know it, I'm battling to hold onto my real estate license. So after a 30-year career in real estate, for that to happen to me was really, really difficult. Building a family business, but I had to own the space. Number one, I had to own what I'd done wrong, and that was lending a mate of mine money without really thinking about it, without really giving it any real thought, and eventually it did cost me my real estate license. I was fortunate to win my license back. I fought for it because I believed in what I did. I didn't believe I did anything wrong, but I was reckless in my behaviour, and I was happy to own that. I was happy to own that space.
Yeah.
But my lesson is that protect your brand. Don't make rash decisions. Don't don't be careful about the people that you're hanging around with, because they are a reflection on you. Now, that was pretty tough for me to be in real estate all my life, and then and built this great business, and all of a sudden not be connected with the business anymore because of poor decisions that I had made, and owning those poor decisions helped me move through them, and
Yeah.
having a strong family and strong friends who believed in me also helped me push through some really difficult times. And fortunately for me, I built a really strong business, and my partners were really loyal in terms of their efforts towards running the business. I won my license back. They did disqualify me for a long period of time. When I got in front of a judge, and we explained to them the situation, that I hadn't actually done anything wrong, but what I'd done wrong was reckless, lending someone money that was not of good character, and that was a really
Okay.
big mistake. So the
Yeah.
lesson is to really be focused on your own self, not worrying about, if you're going to help someone who is in a worse position than you, and be careful about the people that you're hanging around with, because you know what they say: you hang around with dogs, and you'll come up with fleas. I've survived it. It was 5 years of a difficult period of my life. I could have gone to
Mm.
jail, but I didn't. I could have lost my license, but I did. I won it back, um,
Mm-hmm.
and it taught me. It taught me to respect what I've got, because you can lose it very, very quickly. Don't take things for granted in life, because life can take things away very, very quickly. You can have an accident. I can walk across the road without looking. I can get knocked over. I can make a mistake by, by doing the wrong thing and not being conscious of that, and all of a sudden I've lost my livelihood. So yeah, it was a difficult time,
Mm.
but I still believe it was a great lesson for me to learn, and I'm a better person as a result of it. I'm a healthier person, and I've got a better attitude on
Yeah.
life. So in life, every mistake that you make, you are going to learn from, and we all make mistakes. So, and Australians, one thing that I love about Australians, they really do give people a second chance if you own your mistake, and you have genuine remorse. If you don't own your
Mm.
mistake and you've got genuine remorse, no one will ever give you an opportunity. So I
Mm.
like most people, I've had my challenges, but I've come through. The business is still very, very strong. I've still got my 8 working partners who've stuck by me, and we just take one day at a time.
Well, I think it's a testament to your character that everyone's stuck by you, right? So I think that's probably the main thing to take out of it. But I guess from your perspective, there was a period of time where you didn't have your license and there was a lot going on. Were you positive all the way through this? Was there ever a point where you thought, geez, this is all too hard, and you throw in the towel?
Absolutely, I wasn't positive, or I was happy to throw in the towel. I'd gone through
Okay.
hell.
Okay.
I'd
Yeah.
had had some health issues too, which compounded it. And I was overseas, and I was overseas in Turkey, staying with a mate of mine, and I'd really didn't want to come back to Australia for a while. I just needed to get out, and I had a call from my solicitor and said, "Glenn, you need to fight this case." And I
Mm.
said, "Tim," I said, "Oh, I've spent so much money on legals, I'm done." Anyway,
Mm.
Tim wouldn't let me go. He said, "If you don't fight it, you won't get that opportunity again. And I've known you too long. You just can't give this away." I was in a pretty dark space, because I'd done 30 years, and literally everything, my whole reputation had gone bang, done. And I just had
Mm.
one person. Even though my family did believe in me, and my friends, they did not have the legal understanding. So I had a really good mate with a strong legal background that really believed in me, and he
Mm-hmm.
said to me basically, "I'll take this case on. I'll get a barrister. We'll we'll get a criminal lawyer. We will win this case. We will win your license back. You don't deserve to have your license cancelled for 10 years." And at the
Mm.
age of 51, at the time, I was in a dark space, but his belief in me gave me the confidence to fight it in court. Otherwise, I was prepared to
Mm,
throw the towel in. And I'm
mm,
forever grateful to Tim Mitchell for doing that and having that confidence in me and having that belief in me as a person. Because you do lose, you do lose your confidence. You do believe, you do lose your belief. You start thinking, what have I done? And those negative thoughts can drown you out. We're human beings. We're not all perfect. We can't be up every day. And when things go bad, that's where the challenges are. Trying to stay positive. And the way you can stay positive is to have positive people around you. And that's where I was lucky.
mm. What was the feeling like when you won your license back? I imagine that would have been one of the great feelings in your life.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Like,
Yeah.
I just, and so many people were happy for me because so many people thought, what, we know Glenn, he's made a really dumb decision doing what he done, but we know he's not a bad guy. We know he wouldn't rip anyone off. You don't
Mm,
work in real estate for 30 years and try to build a brand, and so I was really chuffed, and what was my mother was really probably for her that was really important. So not
mm,
to see me that I can go back to my career, which I loved, and for her that was really important for her. So obviously, when you've got that strong family connection, you don't want to let people
mm.
down, and I felt as though that I let my family down. So that was really rewarding.
Yeah, no, well, that's awesome. Congratulations on that. And I guess in terms of getting back into the marketplace after all of these events, you'd had a big win. How did you go about getting back into the property space after having some time off and I guess rebuilding your brand in the marketplace?
I'll tell you a very short story, Ben. The guy that won the case for me, Tim Mitchell, he said to me, Glenn, I've got this couple of deceased estates coming up. I'm going to have to get 3 or 4 agents in. I want to get you in. So
Yeah.
I said, fantastic. Anyway, it came down to it, and he said, Glenn, you're the local agent. The property was in Kingsford. We got the executive of the state have decided to appoint you, and we're going to give you the 3 properties to sell. I was fantastic.
Hmm.
I hadn't really sold properties since the year 2000 because from 2000 to 2011, I was the CEO managing the business. Whilst I was auctioning and selling, I wasn't really out there chasing business. Anyway, I got
Hmm.
these 3 properties to sell, and 2015, March 2015, we put them all up that one day. And on this one property in Kingsford, in Forsyth Street, it was, we put up for auction. We had a reserve price of $2 million, and I sold it for 3.1, 1.1 million over the reserve. And at that
Yep.
point in time, Sky News covered the story. It was all over the papers, and it was just like the perfect storm for a real estate auction. And I handled the sale with my son and my daughter at the time. So it was just one of those. It was such a rewarding for me. It wasn't so much the financial benefit that I got out, which was great to sell a $3 million property, but it was just the satisfaction of knowing that you're back doing what you love, and you still got it. You
Yep.
still got that knack. You can still call an auction. I can still generate positive energy from people, and I can still get results. And yeah, that was a really a great time in my life. But I'm I'm not actively selling properties today because we've got 28, 20, 23, 24 agents selling. I'm happy referring business onto my agents now. I'm in my early 60s, and I'm just I look I take care of the marketing department, which is a big responsibility, and I add a bit of value on the board when they need me. But yeah, my partners are very competent people, and I've got a lot of faith in them.
Very good, very good. I liken your return to greatness. I'm not sure if you're a golfer, but Tiger Woods went through a whole heap of grief over his back end of his career, and when he won the Masters after everyone saying that he was gone, it sounds like the king had returned when you sold your properties $1 million over the reserve. So I liken it to that. So well done.
Thanks, Ben. No, it was a great time for everyone, and it was really special.
Awesome. Now, I guess in terms of agents out in the marketplace that you work with, because obviously you oversee the sales team, what do you reckon is the most common mistake that agents make today?
Believing their own bullshit.
Okay,
What
fair
happens?
enough.
Okay, what happens with agents? Not all of them, some of them. They start making these sales, and they start, all of a sudden they're generating this income, and bang, they're buying new cars, new homes, and they start believing the bullshit. Stay grounded, stay humble, stay grateful. You're not better than anyone else. You're not saving people's lives. You haven't got that responsibility. So keep it all in context. You know what I mean? Be grateful that you've got an opportunity to make really good money. And if you love doing it, it's even better, because it's not hard work like you would assume it to be. If you love doing what you're doing, it's not work. You know what they say: find something that you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. So I try to remind my agents to stay humble, to stay grounded, to stay in touch with the local community, to give a little bit back, to appreciate what you've got. And I think if you have that as a foundation, you'll go a long way.
Good advice. Really good advice. Now, Glenn, we are getting towards the end of the podcast now, but we always like to finish off with a couple of rapid fire questions for you to answer. If you were selling for a vendor today, what piece of advice would you give them before they take their property to market?
Trust your agent. Trust your agent. If you put trust in your agent, you will get it back tenfold.
Very good. Very good. And the final question, we normally ask, what would you do with $1 million if I gave it to you in your local marketplace? But being a Sydney real estate agent, there's probably not too many properties you can buy for $1 million these days. So I'm going to pivot this question. If you're a first home buyer entering into the marketplace, where would you buy? Anywhere in New South Wales?
I love the northern New South Wales, southeastern Queensland region of the world. I believe that
Nearby
the weather. Pardon?
Near Byron Bay, those sorts of areas?
Well, Byron's too expensive, but from Tweed Heads down to Kingscliff, around Byron, all that whole region, and even up into southeast Queensland, great lifestyle, great weather, great beaches, and so much more affordable. So you can buy a property up there and rent it out. You don't have to live there. And a lot of people, as a lot of the investors say, you don't always have to buy a property where you live, because who can afford to buy a 2-bedroom semi in Maroubra, which is going to cost you around $2.5 million? So that's not really affordable. But you might go up to Tweed Heads and buy a freestanding house for 800 or 900,000, which is only 400 or 500 metres from the water, and you'll get great capital gains on that, because over time we're going to see people from Victoria and New South Wales all moving north, and that trend's already started. So growth will continue in those areas. There's a great lifestyle up there. You've got good infrastructure, and people are already moving there. So you'll see home prices continue to trend up.
You are the first person that I've spoken to that has said to buy outside of metro areas in major capital cities. So I really like that piece of advice. Thank you for sharing. Glenn, this has been awesome. I really appreciate your time today. I've picked up so much from this conversation that we've had. Obviously, you've had challenges that you've worked through. You've got great advice on how to tackle the ups and downs of real estate. And we thank you for your time today, and we thank you for supporting Homely as well.
Thanks, Ben. You guys at Homely are doing a great job. I know it's It's not an easy marketplace, but you've got a lot of determination, and we need that third player in the marketplace, so we'll continue to support. Just remember, I'll leave you guys on this note. Interest rates are still relatively low. It's just that we're coming from the lowest base in history. So I know people are scared of interest rates going up, but unfortunately they will continue to go up. But they are still at 3.85 as the base rate. They are still relatively low. So brace yourselves for further interest rate rises, because they will continue to go up, and we need to get used to that, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, good advice. Good advice. I think people got comfortable with unrealistic interest rates. So, yeah, it's the way of the future, unfortunately. But Glenn, great advice. Thank you for chatting with us today, and look forward to catching up with you when we're up in Sydney.
Thanks, Ben. Take care and have a great day.
Before you go, please hit follow, like and subscribe to make sure you have me and my next guest back in your ears in 2 weeks' time. Until then, make sure you share this episode with your friends and colleagues, find details and resources in the show notes, and get in touch via Homely socials with any questions. That's at homely.com.au on Insta, Facebook and TikTok.